Most of us have heard that Prakrit is a single language and is a derivative of Sanskrit, but is it really true? So, to answer this, we have to first deal with the misconception that Prakrit is a single language. That is absolutely wrong. Prakrit is not a single language but a group of languages. For example, Pali is also a Prakrit, and Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra mentions 7 kinds of Prakrits. These are Magadhi, Avantija, Prachya, Shauraseni, Ardhmagadhi, Bahalika, and Dakshinatya. But apart from these Prakrit, there are 4 Prakrit which are considered to be the most important one. These Prakrits were Magadhi, Saurasheni, Maharashtri, and Gandhari. Saurasheni was spoken around the area of Gujarat. Maharashtri was spoken around the area of Maharashtra or Western Deccan, and Gandhari was spoken around the northwestern region of the subcontinent. Now, to answer the question about whether Prakrit is a derivative of Sanskrit or not, we have to first understand that there is a difference between Vedic Sanskrit and the classical Sanskrit. The Vedic Sanskrit was much more older than the classical Sanskrit. And when we talk about Vedic Sanskrit, we are talking about the Sanskrit which is in the Rigvedic hymns. Now, when we study the origin of Prakrit language, we find that in the Rigvedic hymns, there are certain hymns which contains elements of Prakrit. By this, it can be argued that during the time of the composition of these Vedic hymns, there existed 2 distinct language groups. One was the priestly language which was used for the Vedic hymns. The second language was a much more popular language that was spoken by the common people. Thus, it would be wrong to assume that Prakrit was the derivative of Sanskrit. We can say, in my view, that these 2 languages, that is, the Vedic and the Prakrit, was both derived from a common ancestor, and Prakrit was certainly much more older than the classical Sanskrit. Another interesting thing about the Prakrit languages is that it was in these languages that the first inscription which we can read were written, whereas the first Sanskrit inscription is the Junagadh inscription of Rudraman, which dates back to around 150 AD. So we can see the first Sanskrit inscription appears in 150 AD, whereas the first inscriptions which we know of is the Ashokan inscription, which was written in Prakrit and dates back to around the second half of the 3rd century AD. So there is a difference of at least 400 years between the Prakrit inscription and the first Sanskrit inscriptions.